Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 9th of January 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So I forgot to mention last week when I was covering the All Core Devs Call Twitter thread that Tim Buyooor put out, that it was actually detailed that the first Shanghai public testnets will be going live by the end of February. So that was basically confirmed by the core devs there, with of course a mainnet release still scheduled for sometime in March. I know I've been saying late March, early April. I think it's probably more likely to be late March than early April, but you know, things can kind of happen, and then maybe we get like a first week of April kind of release there. But as I've said before, it doesn't really matter. And then I continued my tweet by saying, you know, I was told staking withdrawals were never coming to Ethereum, and that Vitalik was holding my ETH hostage forever, obviously poking fun at some of the people spreading FUD about Beacon Chain withdrawals. Now, I've spoken at length about withdrawals last week on the refuel, so I'm not going to rehash that here, but they're so close. I mean, it's January 9th, right? Like, if public testnets by the end of Feb, so let's just say like the last week of Feb, it's about 6 weeks away, not even. And then by end of March, we'll have staking withdrawals. And it'll be before we know it. Honestly, it's not that far away at all. And in the meantime, all the other stuff that's coming in the upgrade after Shanghai, like ERP 4844, is also being worked on. So, I mean, it's kind of funny how, like, the merge seems like it happened so long ago. Now, at least it does to me, because time in crypto just moves so quickly. It happened on September 15th, obviously, but the time between the merge and the time and now is less than the time between now and when withdrawals are going live. So just to put that in perspective, so that's pretty funny, right? Like we're actually closer to I guess like withdrawals going live than we are further away from the merge there. So yeah, just a little fun tidbit there that I thought of just before. But yeah, I'll keep you guys updated on this. We'll see what happens there. Obviously, when it comes to the public test nets, unless you're running infrastructure for them, which most people aren't, you don't have to worry about it. I don't think there's going to be like a live stream for the testnet deployment or anything like that. It'll just get deployed. They'll test it on there. Everything should be fine because staking withdrawals are relatively simple. And then we'll have that going live on mainnet. I don't know if there's going to be like a live stream for the Shanghai upgrade. Usually there are 4 Ethereum network upgrades, but Shanghai is such like I mean, it's exciting because Beacon Chain withdrawal is obviously a big deal, but it's not like the merge, right? It's not like ERP 1559. I'm sure there'll probably be like a stream somewhere. I'll let you guys know where that is because I'll hopefully be able to join it. But yeah, you'll be forgiven for not really caring too much about it, considering it's not as exciting as the merge and ERP 1559 and some other upgrades that have come. But to me, as I've explained at length last week, staking withdrawals are super exciting. I am looking forward to them, more than most things in the Ethereum ecosystem, because I really want to see the second order effects, or I guess like the first and second order effects of what happens after withdrawals are enabled, like that great reshuffling that I've spoken about, and also my thesis on over the, I guess, like medium term to long term, withdrawals are going to be really bullish because it'll mean that more ETH gets staked. So yeah, we'll have to see how that shakes out there. All right, Sam Richards from the Ethereum.org team put together or published today's ETH.org Q1 roadmap. So you can go look at this on GitHub here. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But this goes over everything that the Ethereum.org team is hoping to accomplish in Q1 of this year. Things from hiring a community lead. So, the post says our current community lead is transitioning to another role in the team, leaving a gap in the Ethereum.org team's capacity to interact with and grow the incredible community. So they are looking for a community lead. Maybe that's something you guys are interested in. If it is, you can definitely go apply. You can join the Discord and look out for the official announcement when the role is announced in the coming weeks, but that's just a little bit of an alpha heads up there if you're interested in joining them. And you know what? I know I said that I think layer 2s are some of the highest leverage places that you can join today in terms of a career advancement and other such things, but I think joining the Ethereum.org team is just as amazing. I mean, you get to be an educator, you get to be part of a community that really cares about Ethereum cares about making sure that people are informed about Ethereum, and you get to basically shape that as well. So yeah, I think that would be a really cool role if that's something you guys are interested in. But other things on the roadmap include implementing a design system, setting up storybooks and chromatics, launchpad withdrawals. So obviously with withdrawals going live, they want to help prepare a launchpad to allow users to withdraw their staked ETH as simply as possible, which is pretty cool. Content on withdrawals, of course, protocol roadmap content, and so much more. I mean, this list is quite long, actually, so definitely go check out the list for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But really, really great to see the Ethereum.org website continuing to get better over time. As I've said before, is one of my favorite resources for keeping up with everything Ethereum and learning about everything Ethereum. So kudos to the team for going ahead and putting this roadmap out there for all to see. All right, the Nethermind team has announced a update for the Sedge, piece of software that I've talked about before, which is basically a piece of software that acts as a management suite for solo validators. Well, it now supports all execution clients and Windows. So as a one-click node setup tool, Sedge makes it easy to try new client combinations ahead of the Shanghai hard fork. So this may be something that you're interested in if you want to be a solo staker and you don't want to necessarily have to use a Linux based machine like Ubuntu or use Mac OS, now that it supports Windows and supports all different execution clients as well, which is very cool to see. I'm not sure exactly what the support on Windows looks like. I don't know if it just supports PowerShell or command line, and if it actually has a GUI attached to it. I would say probably at this point it's only the command line as well, so you would still have to mess around with the command line most likely, but this might be something that you're interested in. As I said, Sedge is a, management suite for solo staking, similar to the Rockerpool Smart Node stack, if anyone is familiar with that, or if you've seen that before. It is in similar spirit to that. It's trying to build a way for people to easily manage their solo staking setups without having to go through all the hoops that you would normally need to do in a just vanilla solo staking setup. So yeah, you can go check out Sedge for yourself. I'll link this in the YouTube description below. All right, so I came across this meme today that was put together by Mike from gm.xyz, and this meme is titled "The ETH Buyooor," and it basically. The reason why I wanted to highlight this meme is because it's more than a meme. It really just touches on some of the, most exciting things that are happening in the Ethereum ecosystem right now and why people are buying ETH. Like, this basically goes into people's investment thesis, right, for buying ETH. It definitely goes into mine. And I wanted to touch on a few things here. So the first thing is that talking about how to solve this issue of censorship resistance on Ethereum. Now, I've talked about this a lot and how I think it's an incentive issue, it's a profit issue, and how there are many different fixes that are coming and that have already been released. But they say here on the meme, encrypted mempools will solve MEV and dank sharding will help ETH scale while maintaining composability. So this is hitting a double whammy here with encrypted mempools, as I've talked about before, basically keeping those transactions private before they hit the chain, before they get included in a block, and obviously dank sharding helping Ethereum scale and proto dank sharding while maintaining that composability. I mentioned that Justin Drake on the Bankless podcast that we did on the ETH bull case mentioned that a really cool property of ZK rollups is that they're able to, with dank sharding, able to do cross rollup composability and doing atomic transactions, which I've talked about before and why people like that. And I actually answered a question on the AMA that I put out yesterday regarding this, where I basically said that I think composability is cool and atomicity is really cool, but I think it's overrated as well. Even though it's going to definitely still be a thing going forward, it's going to be a thing for rollups and all those sorts of things as well. I do think that it is probably overrated. People over-index on how important it is versus other things. And then the second point here is, staking is a source of risk-free yield that is likely to increase dramatically with transaction revenue in the next bull run. This is a pretty big thesis that people have, and I see a lot of people talking about this in regards to when demand goes up, gas fees on Ethereum go up, which drives more revenue, more fee revenue and MEV profits to ETH stakers, which drives up the yield, which means more ETH will be staked and locked up, which means that logically the ETH price should go up over time. It's a sound thesis, but I feel like at this point, or maybe we're close to it becoming a saturated thing where everyone kind of thinks the same thing. But it makes sense, right? It makes a lot of sense that this is going to happen. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It definitely will. But I really do wonder where the total amount of ETH stake kind of tops out at. Like, what number do we get to before people say, well, the yield isn't good enough? Like, yeah, okay, maybe I'm getting 3% all up yield here, but that's just not good enough for me. I want to put my ETH to work somewhere else, and 3% just isn't worth it for me. And that's totally fine. Right now, yields can vary, I think 5 to 6%, including execution layer rewards, which is obviously still very tasty and still very juicy for a lot of people. But when you start going to 3% and then 2% and then 1%, depending on the type of person that is staking, it just doesn't become very lucrative for them. And then you may see people outflowing from staking because the rewards are too low, which obviously just increases the rewards for everyone else. So it's a balancing act there. But we could see that happening too. But in terms of activity going up in bull markets, we have plenty of precedent for this. There's no doubt about that happening at all, even with layer 2s live. And that means that transaction revenues go up, and revenues for stakers go up as well there. And then a few other points here, but I just wanted to touch on one more, where they basically said, demand for ETH as the most pristine collateral in DeFi will be a large source of buying pressure. No contract risk, no governance risk, no oracle risk, no custodial risk, and no counterparty risk. I've talked about this before, about how ETH is really the only truly decentralized asset on Ethereum that has all of the necessary properties to be amazing collateral. It has a monetary premium. It is a store of value. As I said, it is truly decentralized. It is very fairly distributed across the ecosystem. It has a massive network effect. It has Lindy. It's accepted everywhere, right? It's very liquid. All these things come together to make ETH the best and most pristine collateral on Ethereum to interact with things like DeFi. And of course, you can stake your ETH and then get an LSD from that, and then use that LSD in DeFi as well, which basically increases the capital efficiency of your ETH with a little bit of extra risk. Obviously, it's not as risk-free as solo ETH, as solo staking, and solo staking doesn't give you an LSD, but obviously it's it's a different risk profile, I should say there. But still, the risk isn't that much more, I don't think, depending on who you go with, right? Depending on what LSD you're holding. I mean, if you're holding a CB ETH, or a B ETH, you're then taking on custodial risk, of course, but you're already taking on that risk anyway by staking with these services. So it really depends on your risk appetite there. But I just thought that was a funny meme to kind of highlight. You can see the full meme. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so there's a great there's a great tweet thread here from slappjakke.eth today, who said, today, I guess over the weekend, who said, optimistic rollups already have a major head start in on-chain ecosystem and community over ZK rollups, but many predict ZK tech to be superior when mature. What if I told you Optimism is preparing for future support for ZK proofs with Optimism Bedrock? Now, I've talked about this a lot of times on the Refuel before, about how Bedrock is being future-proofed, about how I believe that optimistic rollups are totally fine in the face of ZK rollups. They have been building out an ecosystem for quite a while now, and they can easily convert themselves to a ZK rollup, right? Instead of using fraud proofs, they can use validity proofs as time goes on. But I think that's more of a back-end thing that users don't necessarily care about. The users obviously care about the fees being cheap, and post-proto-dank sharding, fees on optimistic rollups will actually be cheaper than on ZK rollups, which is funny as well. And that concern over the 7-day withdrawal period, the funny thing about that, I used to hear about it all the time. I don't hear about it at all anymore. And you know why? Because, as I said when I heard about it all the time, there were going to be solutions that came out, such as often onboarding to centralized exchanges and bridge protocols like Hot Protocol that allow users to just often onboard instantly. And that's exactly what happened. I don't even remember the last time I heard someone talk about that 7-day withdrawal period in a negative light, even in a positive light. I mean, I don't really hear about it at all, which is funny, because they used to use that as a comparison to ZK rollups. In saying that, I'm still obviously very bullish on ZK rollups and ZK EVMs. Obviously, I think that the ZK rollup architecture is technically superior to optimistic rollups, but the optimistic rollup technology and everything else that's being built as part of Optimism and Arbitrum, Optimism Bedrock and Arbitrum Nitro, is future-proofed for this stuff. It can be converted into a ZK rollup, and they get to take their whole ecosystem with them, which is obviously very cool. But if you want to learn more about that, you can definitely give this tweet thread a read, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. And Bedrock is due out in, I believe, in Q1, sometime in Q1, which would be great to see on Optimism there. But yeah, as I've said before, I think I said this from literally the day Optimism went live, because people were saying, why are we putting optimistic rollups live when ZK rollups are going to be here soon? Well, I mean, ZK rollups are live, but ZK AVMs aren't really live in a public mainnet fashion yet, right? And it'll be probably 2 years from when Optimism went live, and a year and a half from when Arbitrum went live, I believe, or maybe more than that, when we see the ZK VMs live. So they'll have an 18 to 24 month head start. The optimistic rollups will have an 18 to 24 month head start on the ZK VMs, and they already have a massive ecosystems. They already have all the apps deployed. People are using them. There's already a network effect there. And then if they convert to a ZK rollup by doing validity proofs instead of fraud proofs, that is a huge plus for them. And as I've said before, and I'll reiterate it again, there's only going to be a handful of big, successful, generalized L2s. I do not believe that we're going to have tens of these things that are super successful. There will be niches that some fill, there will be some activity on some of them, but it is going to be a power law distribution. I strongly believe that when it comes to the generalized platforms. But as I've said in the past, the app specific L2s, there's going to be plenty of those, and they're, in my mind, they're basically niches. They will accrue some sort of value, but the generalized platforms definitely will accrue most of the value because they will have huge ecosystems on top of them. And a lot of them already do. Arbitrum and Optimism continue to grow. Combined, they're about to flip Ethereum layer 1 transaction count, which, as I said before, isn't the best kind of metric, but it's still signal. And they've been growing across every other metric that I've been tracking, like developer activity, fee revenue, smart contracts deployed, apps deployed, users, obviously, organic kind of traction in the community. Those things are kind of subjective, but you can kind of gauge it yourself if you want. But yeah, anyway, go give this thread a read from Slapjake. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. And one more thing about Optimism that I wanted to talk about was a great tweet thread and video from David Hoffman over the weekend, where he said, where he talked about the OP stack, which is basically this set of tools that allows you to fork Optimism and build your own network, or build your own layer 2 using Optimism's technology, and do it in a modular way. Now, of course, David's video is probably the best resource you're going to get for explaining exactly what this is, so I highly recommend going and watching it. I'll link it in the YouTube description below, but you can also read David's tweet thread as well if you don't have time for the video. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I've talked about before how I think that in order for layer 2s to be as successful as we want them to be, there needs to be a service like this. And there are 2 other, I believe, teams working on this. I don't know the name of the second one. The first one is Stacker Network, and the second one, I can't remember the name, but I have seen a second one working on it. Well, Optimism is also doing this as well, because they understand the importance of making their technology open, letting people fork it, letting people play around with it, letting people spin up their own ecosystems, and keeping it all in the Optimism family, so to speak. So it's kind of like how Ethereum Layer 1 got forked a bunch of times, and the EVM got forked because of that, and then it actually ended up accruing a lot of value to the EVM, which benefits Ethereum. Well, with the Optimism network being forked and people spinning up their own networks, that logically, I believe, should push value into Optimism as a community, as an ecosystem, and be better for the Optimism network overall than if they hadn't done something like this. But anyway, if you want to learn more about the OP stack, I'll link this thread in the YouTube description below, which contains the video for you to go check out. All right, so OpenSea announced over the weekend that they are now supporting Arbitrum Nova. So Arbitrum Nova is not the Arbitrum 1 network. This is not the rollup network on Ethereum. This is kind of the hybrid Validium type network that popular apps such as Reddit are using to do their NFT stuff on. But Arbitrum Nova is basically a Validium where it stores data off-chain as part of a data availability committee. So it's not considered a rollup, but it is cheaper because of that to use. But it's still a very vibrant ecosystem. It's still been growing. It's still exposing new users to the crypto ecosystem. And it's great to see that OpenSea has deployed there, because obviously OpenSea is one of the largest NFT marketplaces in crypto. It is still used by so many people. They cop a lot of hate, but a lot of people still use them, and they're still kind of growing, and they're still building a lot of useful features for people, and they still have a lot of liquidity and market share. So great to see them deployed on Arbitrum Nova here. So if you are an Arbitrum Nova user, you can now use OpenSea on that network. All right, so Ryan here from Polygon announced over the weekend that Polygon is partnering with Mastercard, which is one of the biggest financial payments providers in the world, and is launching a Web3 focused incubator to help artists. And this was reported on by TechCrunch on the 6th of January here, so just last week. Basically, it is trying to foster, I guess, like emerging artists with Web3 tools and skills to allow them to participate in the digital economy, specifically, obviously, the creator economy or NFTs and things like that. And Polygon is working directly with MasterCard to make this happen. This is just another, I guess, business development win for Polygon. Bit different than what we're used to seeing from them, where they basically onboard apps onto the Polygon network. But basically, what they're doing here is trying to onboard artists or users onto the network and trying to create an incubator for them for them to play around with and for them to basically get a feel for how all this crypto stuff works. Because I mean, it's still intimidating for a lot of people, right? They may have heard of NFTs, may have heard of Web3 and crypto, and then they go and look at it and like, oh my God, how do I use this stuff? What's a wallet, right? What's a seed phrase? How do I mint my first NFT? Who do I trust? How do I prevent myself from getting scammed? How do I prevent my fans from getting scammed? And all that, so how do I get the most value out of this technology? So that's what Polygon is trying to do here with this Web3 focused incubator. And I think more teams should do this. And it's probably falls to the ecosystem projects to do this. And by ecosystems, I mean like the Polygons of the world, the Optimisms, the Arbitrums of the world, to do these incubators in order to onboard these users. It doesn't fall to the Ethereum ecosystem, I guess like the Ethereum core ecosystem, because the way I think about Ethereum is that it's a business that talks to other businesses. Those other businesses are layer 2s, and then the layer 2s talk to the consumers. So there's a B2B relationship between Ethereum layer 1 and the layer 2s, and there's a B2C or business to consumer relationship between the layer 2s and the end users. So this falls under their, I guess, purview in my eyes, and I don't think it's something that the Ethereum Foundation should be doing. The Ethereum Foundation does do a lot of fostering of the community through their grants program and through mentoring and things like that, but it's more so not on the, I guess, like user side of things. It's more so on the protocol side of things, so that we can enhance the protocol. We can enhance things like developer tooling in order to help layer 2s and help developers build stuff for the users. So more of that B2B relationship there. But yeah, congrats to Polygon on landing this partnership. Really great to see them bringing massive, I guess, companies like MasterCard into the Web3 fold here. All right, so Scroll put together their recap of what Scroll did in 2022. Now, this is a tweet thread that you can read. It's not that long. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But just a reminder here, Scroll is currently in pre-alpha testnet phase, which went live in August. I believe their next upgrade is coming soon. I believe I covered that on the Refuel recently. But yeah, I mean, Scroll is a relatively new entrant to the ZK EVM space. They've been around for a little while, but I think they're one of the newest ZK EVMs, but they're one of the best teams in crypto, I believe. I mean, disclosure here, I'm an investor in Scroll, but they're great. I mean, they're so smart. I talk to them from time to time about what they're working on. They really do understand the ecosystem and understand what it takes to launch something like a ZK EVM. And I believe they have enough gigabrains working on it in order to basically get it live, make it work, and grow an ecosystem. So I'm super excited about Scroll, and great to see their 2022 recap in this tweet thread, which you can check out for yourself, and I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, a tweet here from Ilemi.eth, who works at Dune Analytics, who tweeted out, "My 2023 guide to Web3 data tools is here. These are the most useful tools that data wizards leverage across the analyst journey to discover, explore, dig, and define. I've written up my thoughts and takes on top features from each product." And this is a Twitter thread, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. But there's also a nice little graphic here that they've made that basically shows you each, section or each category of that pipeline of discover, explore, dig, and define, and which tools fit into which part of the pipeline. So at the top here, you can see if you want to discover things about Web3 data, so on-chain data, you go to tools like Dune or Flipside Crypto. If you want to explore that even more deeply, you go and use tools like Etherscan or Block Native or Tenderly. Then if you want to dig deeper into that data, you can again use Dune, Flipside, and some other services here like Nansen. And then if you want to define those metrics, create trusted metrics and aggregation, so basically create dashboards, You can again use Dune, Flipside, DeFi Llama, and a bunch of other tools here. The reason why I wanted to highlight this is because I think it's an excellent resource for anyone who wants to get their hands dirty with Web3 data. It doesn't matter if you don't want to be someone putting together dashboards, you don't want to have to sift through the data yourself. Just knowing about these tools is already a lot of alpha for you, because you can go to them. Some of them are paid, some of them are free, some of them have different tiers. I think most of them have different tiers of information that you can access, free and paid. But just having this list here, having this graphic here to define these things, I think is definitely very valuable, and it will allow you to look into this stuff. I personally really enjoy using Dune. I mean, disclosure, I am an investor in Dune, but I have used a lot of these other tools before. I've used Nansen and Token Terminal and DeFi Llama, and I haven't used Flipside yet, actually. Oh, no, I have used Flipside back in the day. They've been around for a little while now. Obviously, I use Etherscan all the time. Block Native I use as well. I should disclose I'm an advisor to Block Native. And yeah, a bunch of these other tools I use too. I mean, we all use the graph if you're using a DeFi front end, or most DeFi front ends, they use the graph in the back end. But I think out of all of these, I use probably Dune the most. Not just because I'm an investor, but because it just suits my needs the best. I love the dashboards that they have on there. I love going through them and checking all that stuff out. But that's not to say all these other tools aren't valuable as well. They definitely are, and you should go check them out for yourself, and I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to do so. And there's also an accompanying Twitter thread with links to all of these things as well for you to check out there. All right, last few minutes here left. Wanted to look, I try to refrain from talking about the markets too much generally, and I say this every time, but it's always funny when we have a pump, right? Like we had a rally the last 24, 48 hours or so. It seems to be doing okay right now. But I did warn this would happen, right? I said to you that everyone's pushing this echo bubble narrative. And I did say that usually the start of the year is pretty good, most of the time. Sometimes it's not great, but most of the time in crypto, if you look at the history of the data here, it's usually pretty good. And I've given a lot of reasons as to why I'm bullish on ETH specifically. I did the ETH Bull episode with Bankless. Right, so I mean, you guys know I'm bullish on ETH. You guys know I'm bullish on ETH against pretty much every other asset. That shouldn't be news to anyone. But again, I just want to reiterate here, like you got to look at these things on a longer time frame. You have to zoom out. ETH went up today, right? A lot of other things went up today, and some of them went up a lot today. Some of the things went up 20, 30%. But that doesn't mean anything, really, if these things are down 95+%, guys. Like, it's always funny to me because what ends up happening is you get so used to the pain of things just constantly going down or going sideways that any kind of relief, even if it doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things, can make you feel better about yourself and make you feel better about the space and make you more excited and more happy. I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel good and shouldn't feel happy or anything like that. I'm more trying to get across the point that you need to stay grounded, especially if you're trying to trade this stuff. You really need to stay grounded. You really need to realize that chasing things a lot of the time doesn't really work out too well. I've seen people chase things before. It doesn't really work out too well because your emotions are running you there. You have to have an investment thesis and you have to stick to it. That's been my key to success over a long period of time. Since basically 2017, even though I got into crypto in 2013, I actually didn't have an investment thesis back then. Or I was like, okay, I'm going to buy Bitcoin, I'm going to trade it up on these shit coins, and I'm going to make more Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin's going to take over the world, I'm going to be rich. That didn't work out at all. I left crypto until 2017, and then I had an investment thesis from there. I said, I love Ethereum, I love ETH, and then as the years went on, I became more and more convicted on ETH, and obviously that paid off really well for me. And then along the line, I invested in other assets. But then I was always pretty good at cutting the investment off if I felt like the thesis hadn't kind of worked out, or I felt like the asset itself had gotten way ahead of the project itself, right? And that happened a lot of times, especially in 2020, at late 2020 and 2021. But in saying that, enjoy these times if you want to, and enjoy them if they give you excitement and happiness, and you like, shit posting on Twitter, or like in Discord channel, talking in the prices channel. Just don't let it affect your investing or trading decisions, because then you stand to wreck yourself. And that's not investment advice. That's just general advice about anything. Generally, when you're emotionally charged, you don't make the best decisions. Even maybe they're not terrible decisions, but you don't make the best decisions. So if you're trying to make the best decisions, then have your investment thesis when things are quiet. That's actually the best time to form an investment thesis, when things are quiet and going sideways. I formed my most bullish investment thesis on ETH during 2018 and 2019, more so 2019 when things were sideways, based on a variety of different factors. And honestly, I bought a lot more ETH in 2019 because of that. But that was because I was able to think a lot clearer. Now, it's very hard to think clearly when the price is going up, because you're like, oh my God, I'm FOMOing right now. What if ETH doesn't stop at this in price? And what if it goes to like 2K and I don't buy now and I miss out, blah, 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 right? You're not thinking, well, okay, we pumped a little bit, but we're also down a lot. And this isn't just ETH. This obviously applies to everything. And right now, why are we going up? Is it because we went down a lot? Is it because we went sideways? Is it a technical thing? Is it actually based on a new bull market coming? Has there been enough time for the market to absorb all the bad news? All these sorts of stuff. It's hard to time this stuff. It's hard to know. It requires a lot of experience. But my general kind of nugget of wisdom here is that just be sure to keep your emotions in check, because they can and will destroy you in investing and trading. Even if you think that you have a long-term thesis and you think, oh, I'll just dip here or I'll just dip there, it can spiral out of control very quickly. On that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.